a message to the Los Angeles Dodgers. You're welcome.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Thursday, September 4th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the final two games of the Orioles' three-game series sweep in San Diego over the Padres. I'll get you the 5 things you need to know from the wins on both Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll talk about Tyler Wells making his 2025 debut. We'll talk about all the huge outs the Orioles bullpen got in these couple of games, the new changeup for Yennier Cano, all the homers the Orioles hit on Wednesday, and much, much more. And then finally, talk a little bit about the roster moves that were made on Tuesday with not just Tyler Wells, but Jorge Mateo returning to the team. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Just visit 5hewin.com for rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. So I didn't get a recap of Tuesday night's game. As I talked about earlier in the week, it was almost a 10 p.m. start. That game ended close to 1 a.m. on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Viewers and listeners, long time of this podcast know, with a 9-to-5 job, it becomes very tough to stay up and record for those games. So I still got you an episode on Wednesday, kind of breaking down the 40-man roster crunch. So make sure to go back and check that one out if you have not already. But just kind of push that recap to today. So we're going to recap both the Tuesday win and the Wednesday win that got the Orioles to this sweep. So let's begin with Tuesday night. Final score, Orioles 6 and the Padres 2 in game 2 of a 3-game set that clinched the series for the Orioles after they won the opener as well on Monday night. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from Tuesday's W. And the first thing you need to know is Tyler Wells is back. After getting elbow surgery, just the internal brace, wasn't the full Tommy John, last June, he makes it back on Tuesday night for his 2025 Orioles debut. It was a tough year and a half, basically, for Tyler Wells. Was in the rotation to begin 2024, made 3 starts where he didn't look particularly good in any of the 3 of them. It turns out because there was an injury. He had an elbow injury, tried the rest in rehab for about a month or 2, didn't work, so decided to undergo the elbow surgery, the second major elbow surgery he has had in the month of June last year, right around when Kyle Bradish got his Tommy John as well. So it was a long road back for Wells, and it took even longer because congratulations to him and his wife. They had their first child, so Wells got to take 2 full weeks off of any kind of baseball rehab, anything, to be with his wife and kid. That's why he was a little bit behind Bradish in returning, who's already made 2 starts, but finally made that first rehab start in Double-A Chesapeake on July 30th. Then was moved up to Triple-A, where he made 5 rehab starts for Norfolk. And on rehab, he was good. 25 and a third innings, 2.49 ERA, 24 strikeouts to 6 walks. He looked like his usual Tyler Wells self, and he was activated off the 60-day injured list and added to the roster on Tuesday to start the game. And he looked great early. Like, he looked like Tyler Wells. 1-2-3 first inning against, Tatis, Suarez, and Machado in that Padres lineup. His cutter looked way better than usual. A lot more late bite to that thing. Made Tatis look silly on a strikeout to start the game, and then won a long at-bat against Manny Machado to finish the first. Honestly, should have struck him out looking on a 1-2 pitch at the knees. Didn't get the call. Machado fouled off like 6 pitches in a row before Wells finally got him. And what was more impressive for Tyler Wells in what was a solid final line, right? 5 innings, 2 runs, 5 hits, 4 strikeouts, no walks, and a homer on 85 pitches. You will absolutely take that for a guy's first start back from elbow surgery, but he didn't really get a lot of help from his teammates in this one. I mean, there was a play early when Samuel Basallo couldn't see a pop-up behind home plate, lost it in the lights. It fell in for a foul ball. It was Ramon Laureano, and he ended up singling later in the at-bat. Then there was Dylan Beavers, who kind of missed a play he should have caught in foul territory down the left field line. And then Beavers just kind of dropped a line drive out by the left field wall in the 3rd inning that turned into a double for Freddie Fermin. Again, It was hit hard. It was a tough play. I get why it was scored a double. That ball hit right into basically the center of Dylan Beaver's glove, and he just closed his glove too early and dropped it. Again, tough play, going back, running into the wall. This wasn't a dropped pop-up. But that allowed the inning to continue, allowed Luis Suarez to come up with 2 outs and hit a 2-run homer to make it a 3-2 game. So although those 2 runs were earned, you could argue in their head that you could see them as unearned runs. Really should have been 5 scoreless innings for Tyler Wells. And that lack of help, right, the extra outs the Orioles were giving, it did make his pitch count climb, especially in the first 3 innings. He was much more efficient in those final 2 innings of work, but he didn't walk anyone. It was a 62% in-zone rate for his pitches, 69% on his 4-seam fastball, which just allowed him to be in the strike zone consistently time and time again, which that's the calling card of Tyler Wells, right? This is a guy who does not walk anybody. It's kind of similar to what we see from Zach Eflin when he's healthy. He just hates walking guys. He's always in the strike zone for better sometimes and for worse sometimes as well. We've seen both sides of it, but it was mostly for better on Tuesday night. And he's going to be in a 6-man rotation here for the Orioles down the stretch. He'll make 3 more starts for the remainder of this season. Obviously, the big question is Wells a starter or a reliever long-term for this Orioles team? Kind of crept up on us. He's only got 2 more years of team control. He's a free agent after 2027, so it's not like he's still got 4 or 5 years under contract. The Orioles are going to turn him into whatever role helps the team most in 2026. And I know there's questions of, we see Wells as a reliever long-term, which I do. I see Tyler Wells as a relief pitcher long-term for this team. So the question is, why not bring him back as a reliever? Why build him up as a starter? Well, if the Orioles would have been in it right now, they probably would have bought Wells back as a reliever to use him in the postseason like that. But because they're out of it, it's better to have him still be a starting option, because while his body is broken down at times when he's been a starter, he's had some really good runs as a starting pitcher in an Orioles uniform. And we know from this year, the Orioles need as much starting pitching depth as possible. So if you can build him up, have some normal starts, that means he pitches more innings down the stretch to kind of knock the rust off. If he goes into spring training as a starter, you can always easily turn him into a reliever to begin the year. If he goes into spring training as a reliever and you get a bunch of injuries again, it's very difficult and basically impossible to flip to the other direction and then immediately turn him into a starter and be ready by opening day to do that. So that is why they're bringing him back as a starter. Again, I think they'll bring in enough pitching to push him to the bullpen next year. I think that's where he's going to be better and more comfortable and healthier, but it makes sense to still have him coming back as a starter. And so we'll most likely see those 3 more starts down the stretch. Second thing you need to know from Tuesday's win is that Emmanuel Rivera was the offensive hero for the Orioles, was called up last week when Vimael Machine was DFA'd, and Rivera, with Jordan Westburg still on the injured list, hopefully he'll be back tomorrow night. Rivera started all 3 games at third base for the Orioles in this Padres series, and all he did was hit in this series. I mean, we've seen it before. Emmanuel Rivera just kind of go on these runs. Did it last year, didn't really do it earlier this season, but he's back and he's doing it now. 2 for 5 with 2 singles and 4 RBIs. Had a couple of huge 2-run knocks in this game as basically the 2 biggest hits of the game for the Orioles. The O's went 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position on Tuesday night. They left a lot of base runners out there, but the 2 hits were huge swings from Rivera. 2-run, 2-out single in the third off Yu Darvish, ended a 9-pitch at bat with a single that put the Orioles up 3-0, and then another 2-out, 2-run single in the 5th extended their lead and made it 5-2. 6th multi-hit game of the season for Rivera, and his 2nd since being recalled last week. And the 4 RBIs, that ties a career high. Also did it September 28th of last year in Minnesota against the Twins when he went off in that game kind of right after the Orioles had wrapped everything up in terms of their playoff spot. And there's still a chance he's DFA. Like, Jordan Westburg might be back from the ankle injury tomorrow. There's still a chance they just DFA Rivera to make room for Westburg, because once you got Westburg back, where are you going to play him? But with the way Rivera's been hitting over the past week, there's always a chance they keep him around, right? Luis Vasquez is here. He has minor league options. So you could just send Vasquez, who did start at shortstop on Wednesday. You could just send Vasquez to AAA, allowing you to keep Rivera. And Jorge Mateo is back on this roster, like we're going to talk about at the end of the show. He kind of fills in for Vasquez as the more utility infielder who can play everywhere, and you're still able to do what you want to do. I think Rivera might have played himself onto maybe sticking on this team. Third thing you need to know from Tuesday is that, speaking of guys who are hitting, Jeremiah Jackson, man, like, wow. Now, he did have his hit streak end on Wednesday, did draw a walk, but went 0 for 4 in Wednesday's victory. So his hitting streak is over. But Tuesday was a way to go out in that hitting streak. Homers for Jackson in back-to-back games and 3 out of his last 4 after Tuesday, after he hit the solo home run in the first inning on a hanging slider from Yu Darvish to put the Orioles up 1-0, just kind of dumped it into the left field seats. Then had a big RBI ground out in the 8th inning for an insurance run, also drew a walk in that game. And I mean, Jackson's got a 148 WRC plus since he was called up to make his debut on August 1st. He's been the best hitter in the Orioles lineup since August 1st and the 14th best hitter in the American League. Like, this might be real. He's got a higher than 50% hard hit rate. It was a 13-game hitting streak that was snapped on Wednesday. And when it was snapped, it was the longest active hitting streak in Major League Baseball. Unfortunately, Gunnar Henderson had a 14-game hitting streak back in June, so Jackson wasn't able to match that. But this is fun to watch. This is fun to watch Jeremiah Jackson. They've certainly found something here, and I keep it going, right? I'm literally talking about Jeremiah Jackson on every single episode at this point, and he is absolutely earning it. Fourth thing you need to know from Tuesday's win in San Diego is that Rico Garcia might just be a magician. Like, Mike Elias, and I know it's Garcia's second stint with the Orioles because he pitched for him briefly in 2022, but Mike Elias might have really found something here once again. He might have just not been wrong, but early on Garcia 3 years ago. Because Rico Garcia came into another huge jam, entered the game with the bases loaded and 1 out. The Orioles trying to hold a 5-2 lead in the bottom of the 7th inning. And it was a mess left by Cade Stroud, who got a ground out but issued 3 walks when he came in the 7th inning to load the bases. And it was the same thing for Garcia in Boston. Remember, he came in with the bases loaded and no outs and got the 3 straight strikeouts? That was because Cade Stroud had loaded the bases, couldn't throw a strike, and came out of the game. At least Stroud got 1 out this time, but it was basically the same thing. And they go to Garcia. And what does he do? He strikes out Luis Suarez, who strikes out for just the 17th time all season, and then gets Manny Machado to ground out to short to end the inning, doesn't allow the inherited runners to score, and keeps it at a 3-run lead, a 5-2 ball game. Just absurd, the stuff right now. And Arise, who, remember, Keegan Akin struck out Arise to end the game on Monday night. That was the first time all season that Luis Suarez has struck out in back-to-back games. And it was Keegan Akin and Rico Garcia who did it to him. And Garcia's been great since joining the Orioles off waivers. 8 1/3 innings, 10 hits, 3 runs, 9 strikeouts to just 1 walk. And in terms of leverage index by FanGraphs, measuring how high a leverage is this spot when you enter the game, Garcia, since he came over to the Orioles on August 7th, has been used as the second highest reliever in the Orioles bullpen. Only Keegan Akin has pitched in bigger spots. And Garcia, since he joined the Orioles, 15th in all of Major League Baseball in average leverage index when he's entering the game. Tony Mansolino is using him in the biggest spots, and he's coming through. His stuff numbers look insane. I'm not ready to lock it in, but I'm starting to at least in pencil write Rico Garcia into the 2026 Orioles bullpen, because that is how nasty he has been. And the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles 6-2 win over the Padres on Tuesday night to clinch the series victory is that Albert Suarez came in and pitched for the first time for the Orioles in over 5 months. We know Suarez was like the glue hero of this Oriole pitching staff in 2024, coming out of nowhere. Made the opening day roster as a reliever in 2025, made 1 long relief appearance in the second game of the year in Toronto all the way back on March 29th. Got injured. It was a weird shoulder injury, didn't get surgery, but he was out for basically 5 months, made a handful of rehab appearances, and was finally activated to the roster on Monday when rosters expanded. And his first appearance back came in the 8th inning with a 6-2 lead on Tuesday and recorded the final 6 outs to close out the win. He went 6 up, 6 down. His fastball was touching 97. The command looked good. All good signs from Suarez in his first outing in 5 months. And, we'll see with Albert Suarez, right? The stuff isn't elite. He turns 36 in October. It's not a long track record of success, but he's going to pitch in this kind of, multi-inning bullpen role for the Orioles in the final month. We're going to learn a lot about Suarez's future with this team from how he looks in probably some big spots that Mansolino is going to put him in down the stretch. It was cool to see him close out the Oriole win on Tuesday. And then it was cool to see him on Wednesday he took the lineup card out because his brother, Robert Suarez, the closer for the Padres, the two Suarez brothers, took the lineup cards out on Wednesday as the Orioles were looking for the sweep. And the sweep they got. They got it to a big lead, found a way to hold on. I'll tell you how they did it coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. It's perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. And whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. I'm sure you've gotten a wild golf story out there, total fluke, well-calculated miracle. Either way, 5-Hour Energy might help you out. And golf, it's all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. And now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA. So tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. So the Orioles got the win on Tuesday, which allowed them to clinch the series over a playoff team in the Padres, fighting at the top of the NL West with the big-time Los Angeles Dodgers. And then the O's went out and said, you know what? We could sweep a series right here. And guess what? They did just that, winning 7-5 on Wednesday afternoon to complete the 3-game sweep in San Diego. It was honestly one of the more remarkable series of the year, I will say, for the Orioles, to be honest. Not a sweep that I expected to happen, but here we are. The O's now 64-76 after winning all 3 games. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from this Orioles 7-5 victory over the Padres to complete the sweep on Wednesday afternoon. And the first thing you need to know is, well, the Orioles hit a lot of home runs, and specifically, they went back to back to back in the 3rd inning of this game against Nestor Cortes, who they know well from his time in New York. Hit him and knocked Cortes out of the game in the 3rd inning. Started with a Colton Cowser 3-run homer, got a high fastball, and just turned on it into the right center field seats. Don't understand why pitchers are still throwing fastballs to Colton Cowser, but he is still crushing them. Then it was a Kobe Mayo solo shot, and then it was an Alex Jackson solo shot, back to back to back. All 3 homers went over 400 feet off of Cortes. And it was the 2nd time this year that the Orioles have gone back to back to back. You also go back to June 24th at home against the Rangers when the Orioles had that awesome, was it either 7th or 8th inning comeback when Gary Sanchez, Ramon Arias, and Ryan O'Hearn all hit the homers. Yeah, Arias is on the Astros. O'Hearn was there for this one in a Padres uniform, and Sanchez is on the IL and might even just get released by the Orioles when he is ready. So some different names involved in this one, but still awesome to see him do it. 13th time in franchise history the Orioles have gone back to back to back. And the last time before June of this year that they had done it was 2017. So kind of crazy, actually, that they've done it twice in a season. And in a season where, yeah, the power hasn't been terrible, but it's been closer to the middle of the pack in terms of home runs for the Orioles than they're used to. Nice to see a little bit of a power surge on Wednesday afternoon. Second thing you need to know from that win is that, well, they actually had 4 home runs in the game because Jackson Holliday kicked off the home run party with a leadoff homer off Nestor Cortes, 3rd career leadoff home run for Jackson, who also had an infield single and a walk in this game. Made it back-to-back multi-hit games for Jackson, who is now on a 7-game hitting streak. And on that streak, he's 11 for 28 with a .393 average, 3 doubles, a triple, a homer, 3 RBIs, and 7 walks to just 4 strikeouts. We don't need it, right? He's still 21, but would love to see a strong finish to this first full big league season for Jackson Holliday. This last week or so, we are getting a glimpse of what that could be. And for the Orioles, you know, we love the power. 7th time this season, the O's have hit at least 4 homers in a game, but the first time since July 29th that they've done it. And I mentioned that walk for Jackson. It was a really good kind of all-around game for the Orioles offense, right? They hit some home runs and they got on base. The Orioles had 8 walks as a team on Wednesday afternoon. They got 2 from Luis Vasquez, 2 from Dylan Carlson, and a couple others sprinkled within. That tied their season high for walks in a game with 8. They've done it twice. One was June 27th in that game where they scored 22 runs against the Rays. And the other was August 10th and actually a 3-2 loss to the Athletics. So nice to see them do a little bit more with the walks on Wednesday and help them to the win. Third thing you need to know from the sweep clinching victory over the Padres is that Cade Povich was great for 5 innings, and then he fell apart in the 6th. It was a scoreless 5 innings. His pitch count was just over 60. It was 3 strikeouts to 1 walk. He just kind of scattered a couple of hits. He wasn't missing many bats, but he was throwing a lot more strikes than usual through those first 5 innings, which was great to see. It was a 69% in-zone rate on his 4-seam fastball. 3/4 of his pitches were fastballs between the 4-seamer and the sinker. He just peppered fastballs against this Padres order, and it really worked out for him, like really well for 5 innings. And the Orioles got him a 7-0 lead as we headed into the bottom of the 6th. His pitch counts in the 60s. You're like, Cade Povich might give us 7 or 8 strong innings here and walk to an easy win. That didn't happen. 2, 3, 4 was due up in the Padres order for the 3rd time around in the 6th inning, and it became an issue. Luis Suarez single, Manny Machado 2-run homer, makes it 7-2. And then Povich, you're thinking, all right, can you settle down? Nope. O'Hearn single, and then he walks Laureano and Jackson Merrill back-to-back to load the bases with nobody out. Keegan Akin was warming. That was it for Cade Povich, who ends up going 5+ innings in this game because despite facing 5 batters in the 6th, didn't get any of them out. 4 earned runs on 7 hits, 3 Ks, 3 walks, and a homer on 85 pitches for the left-hander. You take positives because you watch him against a good offense in those first 5 scoreless innings with the low pitch count. He's being efficient. He's throwing strikes. You're like, this isn't the perfect version of Cade Povich because he wasn't getting a lot of swing and miss. The really good version of him does get swing and miss, but you're like, with the way he struggled at times, you're loving to see those first 5 innings. And then and he's had this happen to him so many times over the past 2 years, he can't squash a rough inning before it becomes a disaster, right? He can't just give up the 2-run homer, reset, get out of the inning. It's got to be the 2-run homer, then the single, then the walk, and the walk. He's not throwing the ball anywhere near the strike zone to Laureano and Merrill, and he's done. He's going to have to figure this out, right? Because the first time through the order, he's great. Second time through the order for Povich, first time through 2.62 ERA this season. Second time through the order, 6.06 ERA. Third time through the order, 9.82 ERA. And that was entering Wednesday. Those stats are going to go up on the 3rd time through after what happened on Wednesday. He just, quite frankly, he has to figure out how to pitch the 3rd time through the order if he wants to stay in this rotation long term. He's going to be in it for the rest of this year just because of the injuries and the situation. But going into spring training, there is not going to be a rotation spot earmarked for Cade Povich. He's going to have to win it if he wants it. This is the number one thing that he certainly has to figure out. 4th thing you need to know from the win, though, is the bullpen did come in and clean up Povich's mess. Keegan Akin comes in, bases loaded, no outs, up 7-2 in the 6th. Does allow an infield single, but then a double play and a strikeout to escape it with a 7-4 lead. He's been great at getting out of those jams. Did allow a solo homer to Tatis in the 7th, but also got 3 outs in the 7th inning to kind of, give the Orioles some length in relief, which was nice to see. Just generally pitching better in the middle innings than the 9th inning. And then with a 7-5 lead, the Orioles go to high leverage Sean Dubin, who after a leadoff single in the 8th strikes out the next 3 batters. In 16 pitches, he threw 6 different pitches. He's pretty fun to watch, and it's now 5 scoreless innings, 2 hits, 5 Ks, and a walk since the Orioles brought him in on waivers. You like to see the bullpen with all these questions do what they did Tuesday, do it again Wednesday. Just come in and just kind of settle this game down. It was looking like 7-0 lead was going to evaporate in an instant. Akin, Dubin said, deep breath, we're holding this lead. And then the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 7-5 win over the Padres on Wednesday afternoon to clinch the sweep of San Diego is that Yennier Cano's new changeup led him to pick up the save in this one. Annie Kuska had a great story in the Baltimore Banner on Wednesday afternoon. Fantastic timing for that story as well about how Yennier Cano and the struggles he's gone through this year, right? Had a 5.18 ERA entering Wednesday's outing. Just talking about how he's trying to change some things, and specifically that changeup, which was such a good pitch the last 2 years, especially in 2023 when he made the All-Star team. Opponents hit 202 and slugged 303 against it. This year, coming into Wednesday, opponents hitting 375 and slugging 600 against his changeup. It was a big weapon for him against left-handed hitters. Now lefties just crush him because the changeup isn't the same, not as good a movement. It looks too similar to his sinker, and it just was becoming not a good pitch. So in Andy's story, he talks to Cano and Drew French. They talked about how they changed the grip. It went from a usual circle change to more of a splitter grip. And what that means is less sideways movement, more downward movement, and it actually slowed the pitch down as well. And we saw all of that in his 1-2-3 ninth inning to get the save with 2 strikeouts on Wednesday. The splitter that he was throwing Wednesday had 8 inches more vertical drop than his usual changeup and had 2 inches less of horizontal movement. So it's going more straight down. It also was, the velo was lower by about 1.5 miles per hour, which allowed it to separate a little bit further velo-wise from his sinker, which is also good. Didn't look as similar to that pitch. And the Padres had no idea what to do. He struck out Will Wagner with it. He got a crazy sword on a strikeout of Fernando Tatis with that changeup, and then got a rise to ground out on a fastball to end the game. And you just love to see it. First 1-2-3 inning for Cano since August 2nd. First 1-2-3 inning with multiple strikeouts since June 21st. It's been a struggle at times for Yennier Cano this year, but I always talk about how I still believe in Cano long-term. I believe he's a piece of this 2026 bullpen because so many times over the past 3 years, he's been willing to make changes to improve himself. He seems to be one of the most coachable players on this team, and that is a huge thing to have. Here is more proof of that right there as he gets the big save, just his second save of the year. You would think Felix out, a lot of bullpen guys traded, Yennier Cano would have more than 2 saves, but he's blown some, hasn't really deserved to be in that spot, but he locks one down on Wednesday. First sweep for the Orioles in a 3-game series since July 4th through the 6th in Atlanta is their sixth sweep of the year, 5th of 3 games or more. The only other time they did it 3 games or more against a playoff team was June 3rd through the 5th in Seattle. They haven't had a lot of series like this, but this one looked mighty good. And this sweep came along with a couple of different faces in the clubhouse after some roster moves on Tuesday that I missed on Wednesday's episode. So I'll get to those to finish off the show coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. Energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. Well, that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see, that is the price you pay. And at Game Time, listen, all the fees are included. So the price you see, again, that's the price you pay. You know your total up front, no surprise fees at checkout. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. So the Orioles complete the sweep of the Padres, and they also made some roster moves on Tuesday as well, which we will get to here in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you about an important request here at Locked On. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out here at Locked On Orioles and the Locked On Podcast Network. So I wanted to get to a couple of roster moves that the Orioles made before Tuesday's game, but wasn't able to get to them just because I did the kind of pre-recorded episode to talk about the 40-man roster that posted on Wednesday, but just going to run through those moves here. Orioles obviously activated Tyler Wells off the 60-day injured list. They had to open both a 40-man roster spot and an active roster spot for Wells. So they kind of got 2 birds with 1 stone in a somewhat surprising move as Corbin Martin, the right-handed reliever, was DFA'd to make room on both the 40-man and 26-man roster. Now, it's a somewhat surprising move since there were 3 relievers in Yennier Cano, Cade Stroud, and Grant Wolfram who were still in the bullpen and still had minor league options, which means you could have just sent any of them to AAA, held Martin, and no one would have left the organization. But it kind of tells you how they feel about some of these guys. Clearly, they value Cano, obviously, but it seems clear they value Stroud and Wolfram as potential front runners for the 2026 bullpen. If they're making it that important that they continue to pitch in big league innings and instead are willing to put a guy like Corbin Martin on waivers. Now, Martin came over on waivers last year, kind of sat in AAA, finally got the call from the Orioles July 2nd of this year, made 1 appearance, and then was DFA'd on July 13th. He did clear waivers the first time he was waived, so that makes it possible it could happen again. And the Orioles re-signed him to a major league deal on July 18th, which he kind of knew about and seemed like to be the whole plan the entire time. And those first 8 appearances with the Orioles were great. 8 1/3 innings, 1 run, 5 hits, 11 Ks, 4 walks, and a homer. Had that awesome save against the Blue Jays where he kind of broke out. Then he had 2 unmitigated disaster outings after that. Then 5 solid outings, included that extra inning saves in Boston, before his last 2 outings in San Francisco over the weekend were pretty rough. And I think that for the Orioles, there's just been way too much inconsistency. He's out of options. I talked about it on yesterday's 40-man episode. I didn't think there was a good chance Martin would survive the 40-man roster crunch this offseason. So if the Orioles think that, it's not as big of a thing to put him on waivers now. And again, he's already cleared waivers once this year. It could happen again. He could choose free agency, but even if he does, right, he's probably either going to hit free agency or hit waivers again at some point this offseason. Mike Elias, who drafted him, brought him back to Baltimore. Like, I'm sure the O's will look to bring him back because it's a 93-mile-per-hour slider with a good fastball. He's just got to command it, get the consistency, but they'll find a way to bring him back if they can. Jorge Mateo is also back. He was activated off the 60-day injured list on Tuesday, had the elbow injury, then had a big hamstring injury while he was rehabbing the elbow. So he's only played 32 MLB games this year and hasn't appeared in a game since June 6th. I actually thought because he was back with the Orioles facing the lefty starter in Cortez on Wednesday that Mateo would start, but kind of interesting. Mateo did not play in either of these first 2 games back from the injury list. So we'll see how much he plays down the stretch, right? He might start against the lefty here and there. He'll play some infield. Unfortunately, he's probably going to play a little bit of outfield, but especially once Jordan Westburg gets back, hopefully tomorrow, there's really no reason to start Jorge Mateo at any time. And if he didn't start in these 2 games before Westburg's back, like, I don't know when they're going to play him. And he does have a $5.5 million club option that the Orioles need to choose on him for 2026. Just, there's been some great moments. There's been a lot of bad moments. Just don't pick it up, Orioles. It was a nice run, but it's time to be done with the Mateo era. He can be the bench utility guy for 3 weeks, start 3 or 4 games down the stretch just to get some ABs and then send him on his way. Mike Elias loves this guy, so I'm sure he'll hold on for as long as humanly possible. But even though he's back from the IL, it feels like it's kind of time for Mateo. Maverick Handley was optioned back to AAA to clear room for Mateo. He was here for 1 day as the 3rd catcher. He's probably still with the team as the taxi squad catcher. And then Elvin Rodriguez, the right-handed reliever, was DFA'd. He was kind of sitting in AAA. He was DFA'd to clear 40-man space for Mateo. O's claimed Rodriguez off waivers from the Brewers on July 16th. Called up 2 weeks later, made 1 appearance for the O's in Philly on August 4th, allowed 2 home runs in 1 inning of work, then was sent back to AAA. Just hasn't been very good in Norfolk. 10 2/3 innings, 12 hits, 6 runs, 6 Ks, 3 walks, and 4 home runs. He's an intriguing arm with stuff who pitched some for the Brewers this year. He's only 27. He's been a starter in the majors, and he has options next year, but he really didn't prove anything. And again, as I talked about on yesterday's episode, he was going to be one of the first guys to go off this 40-man, and he does on Wednesday. And speaking of the 40-man roster, Roansy Contreras, who was DFA'd last week after that 1 solid outing with the Orioles, he was claimed off waivers by the Colorado Rockies. So he'll be with the Rockies for the rest of this year. We'll see if he, as I would assume, probably will end up on waivers again, and the O's will probably be interested in that when that time comes around. But that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to the show, follow the show, 5-star review, a rating, wherever you can, wherever you listen, that helps us out. Of course, if you could like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel, that helps us as well. And if you want to talk some ball, you want to email me, you got some mailbag questions, you can always email me, lockedonorioles@gmail.com. And speaking of a mailbag, Orioles are off here on Thursday, coming back from the West Coast to host the Dodgers in a weekend series starting on Friday. But I'm going to have a live mailbag episode right here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel tonight. 7 p.m. Eastern time here on Thursday, September 4th. live mailbag episode. Email me your questions, or even better, be there live. Put your questions in the YouTube chat, and I will answer them live on tonight's episode. So make sure to be back here for that one. It'll be posted, the audio version, on Friday as well. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.